Hello class, I'm Steve Decker. We're discussing today beginning and ending the speech, or how to do an introduction and conclusion. Very critical part of your speech preparation. Notice there are 5 purposes of the introduction. The first thing we want to do is snag or snare their attention. We want to get them, if you will, on board the plane with us so they'll follow us throughout the speech. The next thing we want to do is reveal the topic. We want to relate the topic to the audience, show them why this is important to them. We want to establish your credibility or why you're qualified to speak on this subject. And in our persuasive speech, establish your goodwill. And then we want to preview the main points. The question is, how do we do that? How do we get attention? Now, I'm going to give you several ways right now that you can really grab our attention at the beginning of your speech. These are very important. Take careful notes. First of all, you can relate the topic to the audience. That is, show us why this topic is important to us. Now, there's an illustration that I'm going to share with you that tells us how, or gives us an example of relating the topic to the audience. It's Saturday morning, and you are helping clean out your grandmother's attic. After working a while, you stumble upon a trunk. Open it and discover hundreds of old postcards. Thinking about getting to the football game on time, you start tossing the cards into the trash can. Congratulations, you've just thrown away a year's tuition. Now that certainly will get our attention and certainly relate to the audience you're speaking to, a group of students who are very much interested in tuition. So relate the topic to the audience. State the importance of the topic to the audience so that we will pay attention to your speech. Here's how one person got our attention in her speech about what's going on with children. We know that a child is born into poverty in the United States every 36 seconds, and we see 12.8 million children living below the poverty line. A child dies from neglect or abuse every 6 hours. A child is killed by gunfire almost every 3 hours, and the number of neglected or abused children each year would fill up the city of Detroit. Now, by citing these statistics in her introduction, this young lady emphasized the importance of her topic and captured our attention. State the importance. You can startle the audience. Here's another example from the textbook. Take a moment to think of the 3 women closest to you. Who comes to mind? Your mother, your sister, your girlfriend, your wife, your best friend. Now, guess which one will be sexually assaulted during her lifetime? It's not a pleasant thought, but according to the U.S. Department of Justice, 1 of every 3 American women will be sexually assaulted sometime during her life. Now, that's a startling statistic, and that shocks us into listening to this person's speech. A great way to start a speech. Wonderful ways to create curiosity. It is the most common chronic disease in the United States, controllable but incurable. It is symptomless. You can have it for years and never know it until it kills you. Some 73 million Americans have this disease, and 300,000 will die from it before the year is out. Odds are that 5 of us in this room have it now. What am I talking about? Not cancer, not AIDS, not heart disease. I'm talking about hypertension, high blood pressure. Great way to get our attention, creating curiosity. What is he talking about? Do I have it? And then you could ask a question. I really like the way this person began their speech by layering one question on top of the other. Have you ever spent a sleepless night studying for an exam? Can you remember rushing to finish a term paper because you waited too long to start writing it? Do you often feel overwhelmed by all the things you have to get done at school, at work, at home? If so, you may be the victim of poor time management. Now, that's a great way to reveal the topic, and of course, those questions brought us into the speech because we've all experienced those things. You could also start with a quotation. Mark Twain once said, "It could probably be shown by facts and figures that there is no distinctly American criminal class except Congress." Good quote. And that would certainly get our attention. Find a good quote. Do your research. If you find one, jot it down. It may be just the way to get your speech started and to snag our attention. And then, of course, you could tell a story. This young lady started off this way. "There I stood wearing a surgical mask in the middle of a large, brightly lit room. In the center of the room were 5 figures huddled over a table. I found it difficult to see since everything was draped in blue sheets. Yet I didn't dare take a step toward that table. Then one of the figures called to me, 'Angela, get over here and take a closer look.' My knees buckled as I walked through the sterile environment. But eventually I was there, standing over an unconscious body in the operating room." Good way to start a speech. Tell us a story. Now, the next thing you want to do is to, after you've told or got our attention, is to reveal the topic. Now, please note this before we move on to revealing the topic, that you'll have your title, your specific purpose, and your central idea. Then you'll have the introduction centered in the page. You'll have Roman numeral 1, and you'll have the word attention there. That's how your outline is to begin in the introduction. Remember, there are 3 outlines in every speech. The introduction is outlined, the body is outlined, and the conclusion is outlined. Now let's get back to revealing the topic. Please make this very clear. This young lady does it this way. "Alligators, panthers, otters, brown pelicans, these and other creatures have lost 50% of their habitat in South Florida over the past few decades. Now, however, there is an $8 billion program to preserve their home in the Florida Everglades." This is a good way to start a speech and reveal her topic that she's going to talk about, preserving habitat for endangered species. Now, after you reveal the topic, you'll write Roman numeral 2, and you'll write that word out, and then you'll make your sentence about revealing the topic. Then relate the topic to the audience. This is very important. We all have a radio station, WII-FM. What's in it for me? You've got to tell us why this topic is important to us. How is it going to make a difference in my life? If we don't see some benefit from listening to your topic, we'll just listen to something else. We won't really concentrate, unfortunately. Here's some ideas. Will your topic help us improve our self-worth or our self-esteem? Will we be prettier, more handsome? Will it change our appearance? Will we get more control over some facet of our life because of this topic that you're sharing with us? Will we be healthier? Will this be some new discovery, some exciting new discovery that we don't know anything about? That will create interest. Will it help us enjoy life more, increase our happiness? Will we be more successful, wealthier? Will we have a better family life? Will we improve our social life, better relationships? Will this topic challenge me or set some goal that will be exciting, something I will want to do? Will I be safer and more secure because of listening to your topic? Will I be more confident? Will I have more understanding and gain wisdom? Will I have more freedom? Will I have a longer life because I listen to your topic? Hey, am I going to have more fun because of your topic? Now, if you could jot those things down and take one of those and use that in your relate to audience statement, well, you have a much better chance of getting us on board with your speech. Your credibility is telling us that you're qualified. This is your knowledge and your experience. Your knowledge comes from your research. You will say, "I have looked in books, in magazines, journals, consulted with experts in these materials, and I'm going to share with you some important information about my topic today. If you've had experience, then you can tell us about your experience. Like one young lady was talking about weightlifting. Surprising topic, perhaps for a female to do weightlifting, but she says, I've been weightlifting for 8 years. That's a short statement that you would make if you had some experience. Just make a short statement about it. And then in the persuasive speech, you want to talk about your goodwill. In other words, do you have the best interest of the audience at heart? There was a young lady who gave a speech on Connect Lucas about using cell phones, and she didn't want to emphasize or to imply that she wanted them to stop using cell phones, but that it could be dangerous. She says, now don't worry, I'm not going to try to persuade you to abandon your constant companion. I still use mine on a regular basis, and I probably always will. But I do hope to persuade you to make one simple change in the way you use your cell phone. A change that will protect your health and could even make the difference between a long life and premature death. She's establishing her goodwill. It's a little controversial topic. We might be opposed to what she's talking about, but she's saying, I'm interested in you. This could help your health and even save your life. So that's your credibility statement. Preview is simply stating the main points that you're going to cover in your speech, and you should have a preview at the end of your introduction. Those are the 5 parts of an introduction. Tips: it should only be 10 to 20% long. Look for good material while you're researching. If you find a piece of material that's really interesting to you or really grabs your attention, very likely it will grab ours. Put it on your attention page and use that as to begin your speech. Be creative, experiment with different ways, different means that we talked about earlier in this lecture. Work it out in detail. Now this is the one place, the introduction and the conclusion, where I want you to write everything out, type everything out in complete paragraph form. And you should read it over and over and over again so that you know it so well that you can directly look at the audience during your whole introduction and your whole conclusion. Very powerful thing to do. Don't start too soon when you get up. Make sure the audience looks at you, maybe glance from right to left. Have all their attention so your attention getter has a good chance of having an impact on the audience. And then establish eye contact with everyone, and of course, then begin. So those are tips for a good introduction. What about a conclusion? A conclusion has 2 purposes: to signal to the end and reinforce understanding of the main points, or ask us to take some, make some commitment or take some action that you want us to do, you're persuading us to do. We'll talk about that a little bit later. There are crescendo endings which build in intensity and power. Martin Luther King's speech is one of those powerful speeches. You should listen to that on Connect Lucas in the media library. He said this: I just want to do God's will. He's allowed me to go to the mountain, and I've looked over, I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything, not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Of course, no one can do that better than Martin Luther King. But each statement built, it was crescendo, louder and louder, and then he ended it with this strong, dramatic statement. Now, a dissolve ending just reverses. It ends with a strong, dramatic statement, but it gets quieter and quieter and quieter. Douglas MacArthur said this in his final farewell address to the cadets at the U.S. Military Academy. Today marks my final roll call with you, but I want you to know when I cross the river, my last conscious thoughts will be of the Corps and the Corps and the Corps. I bid you farewell. That's a dissolve ending. You fade. Still a strong statement, but quieter, quieter, quieter. And then you say that strong statement. Those are 2 great ways to end a speech. So, in the conclusion, you've got 3 Roman numerals. This is your conclusion outline. You signal the end of the speech. Today we've talked about 3 types of diabetes, or 2 types of diabetes. You give a summary statement, and then you come up with a catchy close. Now, the catchy close might be a quotation. As one person closed this way, none of us have the extra time that we'd like, but whatever time you can spare, you'll be making a world of difference in the life of an underprivileged child. In the words of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, give what you have to someone. It may be better than you dare to think. Good way to end a speech with a quotation. Perhaps end with a dramatic statement. Patrick Henry's legendary "Give me liberty or give me death" is an example. He ended his speech with that strong, strong statement. A wraparound is just referring back to the story you used in the introduction. Very powerful. Audiences think you're really organized and very smart when you pull in a story that you started with and come in at the end and refer to it again. That is simply just called a wraparound. And then you could include a summary within the catchy close. Perhaps you combine these two and the summary is included in the catchy close itself. Now, be creative. Be vivid. Use strong, descriptive language. Be forceful. Be passionate about what you're talking about. If you don't have any emotion, we're not going to have any emotion. If you don't care about your topic, we're not going to care about your topic. You, a good speaker, will transfer their energy to the audience. You must transfer your commitment, your passion, your energy about this topic to us. Facial expressions, movement of the hands, intonation of the voice, words you choose, all of that helps. And then be moving and powerful when you deliver this last part. Have it well rehearsed, all written out. Try not to look at your notes. Look directly at the audience. And if you will do these things, you will become a powerful speaker.